That was heavy stuff there with the judge wrapping it up. With us now, Jonna Spilbor, Phil Holloway, Trey Gowdy, Paul Mauro. And Trey, let's begin with you in the low country yourself. Well, Greenville, South Carolina. How often is it that you hear a judge deliver what we just watched?
Not very often, but, you know, I think your viewers need to know Cliff Newman lost a son not long ago, who also was a very prominent, well-known lawyer in South Carolina. So of all the trial judges in the state that can feel the loss, the finality of death, it would be Cliff Newman. And if you know anything about him, Bill, you know he wants the defendant to tell him why. The jury's already spoken. So for Alex Murdaugh to insult the jury, insult the process was a really dumb thing. Now, the good news for him is he was going to get life no matter what. But I don't know, Cliff may have run them concurrent, but for the fact that Alex Murdaugh continues to lie, and therefore he got back-to-back life sentences.
Well,
Phil Holloway, we haven't had a chance to hear from you yet today. Tell us your thoughts as Alex Murdaugh then is now back in jail and now for life.
Well, great to be with you, of course. My thoughts, my goodness, I've got so many, you know, because I can relate to this. I'm a member of the legal community, and I'm privy to a lot of the things that happen, you know, socially and that they never really be talked about outside the legal community. And I felt a lot of that coming from the judge here. He's just, quite frankly, dismayed. One of the things that strikes me in this trial, guys, is that, look, everybody who was in that courtroom and saw this defendant's testimony in person, the jury and the judge, none of them appeared to have believed him. And in fact, it seems that he dug himself a much deeper hole. A lot of us on the outside, you know, objectively said, well, wait a minute, as far as defendants when they testify go, maybe he did okay. But apparently we were dead wrong. The people that were in the courtroom read that. And I think that it was probably a mistake, by the way, for them to do that jury view, because the jury got out there to that house in Moselle and they said, look, if you have basically all this gunfire, not one, but two blasts from a 12 gauge and 4 or 5 possibly shots from a high-powered rifle, how could somebody at that house not hear it? So his testimony and his statements about not being there and then being there but not hearing anything, that went nowhere. The jury and certainly the judge was not buying what Alex Murdaugh was selling, and it cost him not 1 but 2, as we heard, consecutive life sentences. He's never going to breathe free air again.
Well, before I get to John in a moment here, just going to bring in Paul Mauro and welcome Paul to our coverage here, and just your initial reaction based on what I thought was quite an extraordinary message delivered on behalf of the judge. As Trey pointed out, he was trying to get to the why, and Murdaugh wasn't going there. Paul.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, the sentence is unsurprising, right? I mean, the judge seemed to be signaling along here that when he said yesterday that the evidence was overwhelming, et cetera. Also, the evidentiary rulings were going against the defense consistently. So the judge saw right through this. I think there was the real dispositive moment in this trial the judge just alluded to, which was that we started the trial with the defense essentially asserting that Alex was not anywhere near the scene. And then ultimately it comes in under the motive evidence, all this character stuff, but the video comes in showing that he was at the scene. Now, why is that so dispositive as compared to some of the other lies that he told? Because that lie developed during the trial in real time. It starts out, the trial starts out with the idea that he's not there, and that's their assertion. Then they have to call this audible because this video is so compelling. People went on the stand and said, that's definitely his voice. The defense says, you know what? We got to change tacks now. As the judge put it, we got to change horses. And now they have to put him on the stand. They hear right from his mouth, actually, it was me. If you're the jury, you say, wow, this guy just lied to us to our faces. Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, we're hearing he's a liar because he lied to his wife, he lied to his clients. He just lied to us. I think the judge felt that way, and clearly the jury felt that way. And from there, it was a long way to an acquittal.
Could we just get your reaction, before we go back to Jonna, about the judge and his demeanor and how he just conducted the ending of this trial before he gavelled out?
You know, it's funny, a word occurs to me, which is hard to say, Solomonic. Somewhat like Solomon. I felt he was very measured. He was very assured. He, I think, conducted this sort of a trial with great dignity. There are going to be defense attorneys who disagree, felt like he gave too much latitude to the prosecution. That would potentially be the basis for an appeal, abuse of discretion by letting so much of the financials in, et cetera. But I think the jury verdict bears him out, and I think that his demeanor and the way that this was conducted and the fact that we all got to see it, right? It was televised, I think is not only a win down there, it's a win for the American justice system. I think we should feel good about it.
So his son was Brian Newman. He died on the 7th of January of this year with a blood clot in his heart. Just to follow up on Trey's commentary there. Jonna, what do you think now?
Well, I'd like to weigh in on the judge. That was eloquent and thoughtful. And I really got the sense when he was meting out the sentence that he would be having that same conversation with Alex Murdaugh if he were alone in a room with him, if none of us were there. I mean, he really did care. It was interesting that he tried to elicit some sort of confession from him, but obviously Alex Murdaugh can't do that. Why? Because as the judge said, there absolutely will be an appeal in this case, and for that reason, Alex Murdaugh can't explain what maybe is in his heart, maybe what he really wants to, or maybe not, because he is still maintaining his innocence. But one of the big bases for appeal will be that Judge Newman allowed all of that financial evidence to have a trial within a trial under 404B. That's going to be problematic down the road, but could be a benefit to Alex Murdaugh.
Well, Phil Holloway, can I ask you about, though, because as we were just pointing out, what really turned this case seems to be the change in the alibi. And so that doesn't have anything to do with the financial crimes that were brought up in the trial.
Yeah, you know, this is something that I think I told you before, maybe speaking offline. The prosecutor was right to go after this right out of the gate. But even before that, the defense counsel should have come out in opening statement and very clearly said to the jury that he lied. They needed to go ahead and get that out of the way to sort of steal the prosecutor's thunder and not waste the jury's time having to hear all of these witnesses come in and give their opinion that they were absolutely certain that that was his voice. And if I fast forward to yesterday, to the end of this trial, now it's all starting to make sense how we got a 3-hour verdict after, what, a 6-week trial. Very early in this case, the defense lost the jury. They lost credibility with the jury. The jury basically heard what they had to say, but they gave it no credit because they lacked credibility. If they had come out of the gate saying, look, yes, he lied to law enforcement, and you're going to understand why by the end of this trial, maybe they would have had a chance. But they didn't do it that way. And it makes me wonder, Dana, if he may have been a little bit dishonest with his lawyers. But this is something that I think should have come out very early, steal their thunder, and go ahead and get that out of the way so the jury can consider other things that might be helpful to your case.
Well, Trey, at one point we were told that his lawyer, Dick Harpootlian, well known throughout the entire state of South Carolina, didn't want him on the stand. If that's true, then Alex Murdaugh talked him out of it. But you were just going somewhere with this judge a moment ago. And what the judge said was, you were talking about the judge has a history of wondering why. Tell me why. And perhaps he was even looking for a measure of forgiveness on behalf of Alex Murdaugh, because the judge said, you know, with the drug addiction, it might not have been you. But he wasn't even willing to go that far.
Right. Well, that's the way to reconcile all of this. I mean, people like symmetry. They like it when it all fits together. Alex Murdaugh said, I would never either intentionally or hurt Maggie and Paul. I'm sure in his mind, it wasn't him that did it. Remember, it was the drugs that caused this selective paranoia, this selective amnesia. So if drugs can cause you to have selective memory, can it also cause you to pull the trigger? I think that was Cliff's way of trying to reconcile it all. Bill, in the interest of full disclosure, my daughter was a temporary law clerk for Cliff Newman. She sat with him. So I am very familiar with his sentencing process. He gives you ample opportunity to explain why it happened and offer mitigating circumstances. Now, I don't think it's going to matter. This guy was going to get life no matter what. I also thought Cliff did a beautiful job of kind of pointing out the difference in my state. He did it subtly, but you have an African-American man presiding over a prominent white lawyer in the same courtroom where those roles were reversed for a long time in my state. And I thought Cliff showed great grace, and I'm just going to put everybody's mind at ease. This case ain't being reversed on appeal on 404B. The defense opened the door, and the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court ain't going to reverse this case.
Paul, what about the first responders, the police, the investigators, and how they did leading up to this?
So, you know, when you are really deep in a hole as the defense, what do? You attack the police and you attack the process. And the police work here wasn't impeccable, but you know what? I never had a case that was perfect and never lost a case at trial. So you have to consider that. They did mark them up a little bit. There was some discrepancies between one of the testifiers of what he said in grand jury and what he said at the actual trial. And so, you know, that puts the liar hat on him. And then there's sometimes a sidestep to, well, if he's lying, all the police in this case are lying. Here's the problem with that. If you're going to do that, you have to say, okay, the police are lying. Then what did really happen? What's the counter narrative, right? They never managed, the defense never managed to engender in the minds of the jurors a picture, a movie in their heads of what did occur if it wasn't Alex Murdaugh. And my theory on that, and this I felt was nearly fatal for them, was that they tried to put a toe in the water into the narco world, right? They started playing with this idea that Cousin Eddie was involved. Cousin Eddie was in the oxy world. That's where Alex was getting his oxy. This could have been a cartel hit. You felt it starting to go that way. But that door got slammed shut when Judge Newman said, okay, if you're going to play with that, we're going to reverse. I'm going to reverse my earlier decision. The suicide attempt, which Cousin Eddie did, is coming in. And so they got their fingers burnt on that. The other problem with that is that OxyContin is not a cartel drug. That's a pharmaceutical. You know, the doctors and the pharmacists are the ones who take the collars on that. So the whole thing was a bit of a canard. The jury saw through it. Judge slammed that door, and I think that they never really managed to develop this counter-narrative that the police blew it and something else happened.
Thank you all. Wow. Paul Mauro and Jonna Spilbor and Phil Holloway and Trey Gowdy. I'll just leave you with this. The judge said your family controlled justice for over a century in this part of the state.
No longer.
Yeah, correct on that.